I'm Alex Cobham. I'm the Director of Research at the Tax Justice Network. I'm an economist, and I'm going to talk about the Financial Secrecy Index, which is an index we developed at the Tax Justice Network to capture the relative importance of different jurisdictions around the globe as well, what are called tax havens. But the first thing I want to talk about is the reason why we don't tend to use the term tax haven. And that's because there's no good objective definition. People think of a definition that involves tax rates, but actually what you find is that it's the role of financial secrecy that is the most important thing. It's not really that jurisdictions are using very low tax rates to attract real economic activity. It's that they're using financial secrecy to attract income, whether that's corporate profits or the income on the assets of individuals, that's income that's actually coming from other jurisdictions. And what they're doing is taxing it at a very low rate, but importantly they are hiding the fact that they're doing so, in effect, from the tax authorities or sometimes the regulators, the criminal authorities in other jurisdictions. So this is money that's either legitimate income that's being shifted and hidden so that it's not taxed elsewhere, or it's income arising from criminal activities or money that's being laundered, the proceeds of crime being laundered, or proceeds of corruption, the theft of state assets, for example. So in each case, the really important feature is not the tax rate itself, it's the fact that the financial streams or stocks are being hidden. So the Financial Secrecy Index aims to capture, on the basis of verifiable criteria, the extent to which different jurisdictions offer that type of financial secrecy. So there are 15 components to the secrecy score, which makes up half of the index, and they cover a range of things from, for example, the strength of banking secrecy to the ease with which you can register a company or a different vehicle, trusts or foundations, anonymously. So the extent to which you can use that type of structure to hide who is the ultimate beneficial owner. So that's around the actual structure. Then there's a set of components that relate to the extent to which the authorities capture information, and then the extent to which they share that information or they cooperate in different ways with other jurisdictions. So do they have instruments in place, for example, to exchange information automatically, tax information or information about potential criminality with other jurisdictions, or do they resist doing that? So on the one hand, are they allowing anonymous ownership of different forms? On the other hand, are they either collecting that information or publishing it or sharing it with other jurisdictions? So to what extent, ultimately, are they creating the kind of secrecy that allows a criminogenic environment, in particular, that facilitates crime or tax abuses taking place in other jurisdictions? So the secrecy score that's made up of all those pieces, we combine in the Financial Secrecy Index with a measure of the importance of jurisdictions globally. Now, sometimes when you see lists of tax havens, the type of lists that the International Monetary Fund or the OECD used to put together, they're made up primarily of very small jurisdictions, jurisdictions that may be very secretive, but in the grand scheme of things, just are not very important. By and large, those jurisdictions end up left on those indices, those lists, precisely because they are not big. They don't have the political or the economic power to get themselves off the list. And that's why it's important that we have something like the Financial Secrecy Index that gives you a more objective view. So we take the secrecy score, which is based on the rankings of all sorts of different international organisations of all sorts of aspects of financial secrecy, and we combine that with a global scale weight. Now this is constructed mainly from data from the International Monetary Fund on the provision of financial services to non-residents. So it's about how important is a jurisdiction in terms of providing financial services to people and companies in other jurisdictions. And that gives us a relative scale for each jurisdiction. Now, the effect of this is that by combining secrecy and scale, the Financial Secrecy Index gets away from these kind of lists of the usual suspects of secretive but small jurisdictions and actually sheds some light on the real geography of financial secrecy. That is, the jurisdictions that are most important in terms of providing financial secrecy globally. And that means it really brings into focus some of the bigger players. So at the top of the index comes out every 2 years. The most recent index is from 2013. At the top of that is Switzerland, closely followed by Luxembourg and the Cayman Islands. Now, these three jurisdictions all combine important global scale with pretty serious secrecy. Further down the index, you see jurisdictions like Germany, for example, which is financially important but not nearly as secretive. But then also jurisdictions like Jersey, which is relatively secretive but rather smaller in its global contribution. So you see the way that this combination of secrecy and scale brings together jurisdictions. And obviously the ones we're really concerned with are those that are operating at major global scale but are also highly secretive. And that's what the Financial Secrecy Index ultimately points you towards. You can find all the details of the methodology and the underlying data on the website, which is financialsecrecyindex.com, along with a report about each individual jurisdiction and the particular elements of secrecy where they have space to make greatest progress in terms of becoming more transparent.